Okay. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Doug Orr. I'm the chair of the local group of Sierra Club. We're the Woods and Wetlands group. We cover the northeast corner of Illinois, including most of Lake County, northeast Cook, and a little bit of McHenry County. Welcome to tonight's speaker series. We will be recording this session to post on our YouTube channel. If you don't wish to be seen, please shut off your video, which is located on the lower left-hand corner of your screen. At this time, Rosemary Heilman will introduce our speaker. Rosemary?
Thank you, Doug. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another speaker series program sponsored by the Woods and Wetlands Group of the Illinois Sierra Club. My name is Rosemary Heileman, and I will be your host this evening. Our speaker series programs feature lectures on topics relating to our environment, stewardship, wildlife and nature, public policy, and anything about outdoor activities like hiking and canoeing, even bird watching. In a minute, we will hear from our featured speaker, Gary Swick, president of the Friends of the Fox River. But first, we have a couple of brief announcements. As Doug said, we are recording this so that you can watch it in the future. Turn off your camera if you don't wish to appear on the video. We will send out the YouTube address for the program later this week so that you can watch it again. Before we begin, please make sure that you are muted, especially if you have a barking dog, a television, or other commotion in the background. Please feel free to ask any questions of our speaker this evening by using the chat room at the bottom of your screen. We will select questions afterward, and they will be directed to Steve after his presentation. To Gary, pardon me. So now let's move on to our March featured speaker, Gary Swick. Gary Swick used his BS in Natural Resource Management from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point and a master's in education in outdoor teacher education as the foundation for developing a field-based high school environmental science suite of 8 courses. Under his direction, students planted thousands of trees, restored acres of natural areas, generated files of research, and accomplished many other acts of environmental stewardship that have become local history. Many of those students are now professionals in the environmental field. In addition, he also invested 10 years at Northern Illinois University as an instructor and 18 summers as a raft guide on the Snake River in Wyoming. Gary serves as the president of the Friends of the Fox River and is a board member on several other nonprofit conservation groups. He is an avid outdoor recreationist and a true water warrior. We welcome you, Gary. You can
Thank
start.
you. That was very nice. All right. Well, Friends of the Fox River annually delivers a State of the Fox address, and that's what I was asked to share. So I just started with a graphic of the watershed. A lot of people, even in the Fox River watershed, don't really know how big it is. So it's over 200 miles long, and a third of it is in Wisconsin. And the graphic on the right side comes from a film, Watershed Warriors, that the production group Rivers Our Life produced. And it was just a movie poster, and I thought that it worked pretty good for this year's State of the Fox. Uh-oh. All right. It's not advancing for me.
If you can bring your cursor on that little arrow on the bottom left of the slide, if you hover over the
Oh,
left,
I got you. Got it.
there's a little arrow below. You're a little high, kind of on the bottom of
Right
the map.
there.
No, on the map, if you
Oh,
hover your cursor down on the
oh, I
very,
see. Right here
yeah, now go all the way to the right. There's a little arrow. Do you see?
to the
That's
left.
that's left. Now you want to go to the other end. There's a
I got a toolbar in the way.
Oh, okay. Um,
Uh-oh.
well, try hitting your arrows, maybe your directional arrows on
Yep, that's what I'm doing.
how
Now I
about
got some other
how about the
issue in the
return?
middle of the
How about the
screen.
return?
No, it worked before when I tried it.
Mm-hmm. Um, oh, I know. Why don't you try making your screen a little smaller so you can see that little arrow that goes right?
Okay.
Oh,
Well,
there's something happened.
that worked.
There,
All
that
right,
worked.
let's try
Okay,
that again. Oh yeah, here we go. Here
you
we
got
go.
it.
Thank you. All
Sure.
right. Well, I'm going to be telling you a little bit about the Fox River as I go through this address. It's just, it's all rivers are special, but of course, I think the Fox River is a little extra special. And normally, this address is looks is it's a celebration of things that we've accomplished in the watershed generally. But this past year was a little bit different. So that's how I gave it the title of Planet, Politics, and People and how they fit together this year. And just a disclaimer on the slides, I asked several people to contribute to this address and they offer slides. And oftentimes I just use their slide. And so if you're one of those people that gets disrupted if all the backgrounds aren't the same or all the fonts aren't the same, I'm sorry about that. So I'll answer this question for you. Mother Earth has a lot of names. That's one of them, or the blue planet. But it's made up of four different spheres that are independent, but they all impact each other. And so take a little look at that. Um, we went through an ice age and after a tropical period, and during that ice age, several glaciers advanced. And I don't know how familiar everybody is with glaciers, but when I'm trying to describe it to students, I ask them to have an image of a snowman. And how you make a snowman is you start by gathering some moisture, like snow, all together, and you roll it up, and that grabs more moisture, and it starts getting bigger and bigger. And as you're rolling it, anything that it picks up is going to come along with the snow. And then in this case, you can decorate it at the end. But wherever that snowman started, the important thing is where it ended up. And when it melts, that hat and nose and eyeballs and scarf are going to end up wherever it melted. So the snow can start in one place, but the snow can end up in another with anything that it picked up. So this is a graphic showing different formations that come from a glacier. So it's on the right side and it would move to the left as it grows, as things were cooler, and it would grab moisture out of the air. And as it advanced, it bulldozed into things. And you could see in the previous picture, the ice was quite tall. Some claims are it was over a mile tall, but I don't know anybody from 100,000 years ago that can verify that.
You
But
here
pardon me?
have a choice.
All right, how far?
So as it warmed up, it would recede. So in this case, you're seeing that um, the moraines there are where it advanced to and then warmed up, and that would be where the carrot and the eyeballs and the scarf would end up, and then it would recede and flatten things out, and then where it stopped for a while, then it would deposit more material, and those are called moraines. And the lakes are the important thing here. So as it was very heavy, it made depressions in the land and created lakes. So some people will say that the slowest moving thing ever is a glacier because it could advance, maybe just a couple inches or a couple feet over 100, 500 years, and the same in reverse. But in our case, one of those glacial lakes blew through a moraine and it created the Fox River Torrent. And the story is that this torrent was a raging river 300 feet deep, and it carved out the landscape and part of the watershed that we have. And the Chain of Lakes formation, which I'll show you a slide later, is an example of that. And so the slowest moving thing turned into one of the fastest moving land formations. So here you can see in the shaded out area, the last of the four glaciers. that came through, and those were the boundaries of it. And so the Fox River is right on the edge of in Illinois. And there's just another list of different features, but all those features are important because they're really the foundation for things taking over in the landscape. So where we are in Illinois is interesting because it's an area where several biomes come together. So the definition of a biome is a large geographic area with a common climate, and the climate would be maybe hot and dry or hot and wet or cool and temperate. And so we have the northern coniferous biome to our north, and we have the grasslands to our west, and the eastern deciduous forest to our east, and we have the desert to our southwest, and all those converge in Illinois. And so consequently, we have these unique glacial features that are here from being the edge of the glacial advance, and we have these different climates banging together. So all that creates a lot of different kind of habitats. And in Illinois, there are 91 different habitat types. And oftentimes we just break it down into three: prairies, forests, and wetlands. But there are different kinds of prairies. And so what this is showing you are the kinds that occur in this watershed. And where it says 86% after gravel hill prairie, that means 86% of all the gravel hill prairies in Illinois are in the Fox River watershed. So we have a lot of gravel here because of the glacial advance. So we're pretty rich in gravel. We have various kinds of forests, but we really excel in unique wetlands. And so you can see the percentages there. So if you build it, they will come. So we have all these different habitat types, and so that makes it a suitable home for all different kinds of plants and animals. And with diversity comes stability. However, we've messed with our climate, and maybe you remember back in the 80s when concern was over the ozone hole and over the poles on the north and the south. And we reacted to that. We figured out what was causing that, and we put a partial ban on chlorofluorocarbons, and happy to report that there's healing that's been going on. But we've created a gas layer that's serving as a blanket. Some people would refer to that as the greenhouse effect or greenhouse gases. And all this is changing the pressure and creating different wind patterns. And so when the atmosphere mixes up with the hydrosphere, and that's where water has evaporated, and gets caught by wind, that's really what creates our weather events. And I'm going to point out that our weather events are not very regular anymore. And the lithosphere is the crust, and that is impacted by this water action and these weather events on some extremes, sometimes floods, sometimes drought. And if you're living here, you really have a choice. You can adapt to the conditions or die. So, looking at our climate, what this is showing you on the map in the top left is just extremes where just with heat, where in the past 50 years we've had changes with that. That translates to violent weather, which you can see on the top right. And the important thing is on the bottom is we have this general warming trend. So we'll hear warmest year ever, or warmest June ever, or wettest June ever. But it's these extremes that are really going to be difficult to navigate with. So I refer to it as climate chaos. So this is a graphic of the flow in the Fox River. This one is taken at the Algonquin Dam, but the river is passing through, and so it's about a 7 mile journey from the headwaters down to where it empties into the Illinois River. But what you're seeing with the solid blue line are the flows last year. And this one is in gauge height. And so you can see pretty normally after winter, it's low. And then when the snow melts in the early spring, we get a spike. And then we have some rains. And then last year, there was a huge spike in August, and that was a rainstorm. And then it evened out. 6 feet generally here is the average. So what you're seeing in the dotted lines are the 15-year average. And so last year was the driest, lowest flow year in the last 15 years. But in that August event, we set a record in Wisconsin. So big storm moved into Milwaukee, and they had several days of rain, but in one particular day, I think it was the first one on August 9th, in that 24-hour period, they had 14 and a half inches of rain. So those are not swimming bears. Those are sculptures that are in a park. And this is in Waukesha. And on that particular bridge, they parked their salt trucks on it because they were afraid the bridge was going to wash away. So they used the trucks to hold it down. So we're having extremes. So that's the planet. So now we're going to take a look at the politics in the last year. And we know that we got a new administration that boasted about creating some major changes, and they happened right away. And so we know that a lot of different things were eliminated. So that's why I have that X'd out at the top. And then one important thing about that, one of many, is that we lost a lot of personnel. And so some of the most experienced people were encouraged to get out. And so they got buyouts. And some of the terminations were immediate. So it was like pack your desk up and get out. And this was really a problem for research projects that were taking place. And so it's not just the staff loss, but it's a lot of knowledge that was lost in that. And I just picked out the um, uh, uh, I'm sorry, Fishery and Wildlife Service lost 20% of their staff, and some staffs are even greater than that. And in some cases, the people that were replaced were not really um, qualified at all, and in some cases, have negative policies to what the normal operation was of that particular agency. So after all those cuts, we created a political climate that I think pretty fairly could be called chaotic. And so we know there's threats to the democratic process, and that democratic process is pretty important to environmental protection. We have this partisanship that seems to be enabling us from moving forward and decision making. People are punished for opposing things, and so we look at what can we do in this case. You know, we thought we had Congress and that had some control over these things. You know, we're learning every day that you can have an executive order and it just happens. And so we rely on the courts to step in. And we have cases where, yeah, you can't do that, but it's still happening. And so these court cases take a long, long time. And so when I made these slides, it was in December preparing for the January address. And at that time, we were pretty upset about a military presence on our streets. And now it's way beyond our streets and it's in other countries' streets. And so we know this is having international impact, not just on the people, but on the environment. So we just had a No Kings rally, and actually these picture the King Wrong was from the weekend, but the other ones were from a previous rally. So maybe you recognize the people in this photo. So that's Donald Trump, and that's Bishop's Buddy, who gave the, oh my gosh, I'm gonna lose the word, but um, okay, I lost it. Somebody can help me. Um, she did that on the inauguration. So the quote that I have there is not what she said on inauguration day, but I thought it was very interesting that she said, we don't get to choose the times that we live in. We're placed here, but what we can choose is what we do about it. And she recommended planting seeds of hope, and we have lots of hope. So if we go back to the Clean Water Act, that's 50 years old, and it's had great success. But we know with this administration, we have a tax on the Clean Water Act now, and we've been working on fending that off. But there's success stories that have taken place. So water quality has been improving for 50 years. It's been slow progress, but it's been steady and it's been consistent. And in our watershed, phosphorus is one of the main impairments that we have. Phosphorus is naturally occurring, um, but where we see it most is in wastewater treatment plant effluent because it's in the foods we eat. And so we pass that food along to the wastewater treatment plants. It's used in agriculture, but it's naturally occurring. And I'll talk a little bit more about the impacts of phosphorus a little bit later. Chlorides are something that we're monitoring more, and we're learning that it is increasing really rapidly. And we know that it's directly connected to de-icing and the amount of pavement that we have. So we know what the situation is, just like the hole in the ozone layer, but how we're going to act is up to us. And a lot of municipalities are considering best management practices and going through trainings and limiting the amount that gets applied and using alternatives to the chlorides. But as success, we can see probably the icon for the Fox River are the bald eagles. And so the graphic I shared was just from Wisconsin nesting sites. And you can see in that basically 30-year period the increase. So it was a matter of banning DDT and protecting habitat and being an endangered species. What we can use for protection is owning the land. And in our watershed last year, we had three forest preserves and one conservation district, which were able to pass referendums that generated funds. And there's been land acquisitions because of that. The Prairie State Conservation Coalition um, handed out some grants. I'm going to show you a slide on that. And so that helps with some land acquisition. And I'm going to show you an example of the Conservation Foundation's work. So grabbing up this land so that we have some control over it is essential. And then how we restore property that we have. And we just passed Rewilding Act in Illinois. So I'm going to focus on dams a little bit, and so we've had success. Um, you may have heard the term an endangered river. So the American Rivers Association puts out an annual list of the 10 most endangered rivers in America. And so a couple nonprofit groups got together. Sierra Club was one of them. So was Friends of the Fox River. And we applied to be an endangered river. And in 1999, we made the list and we were ranked seventh. It doesn't really matter if you're first or 10th, it's that you got on the list. And this created a little bit of PR backlash because how some people read that was, oh, an endangered river. I knew it was a really dirty river, but that's the opposite of the case. You get to be an endangered river when you're a quality river and that quality is being endangered. So the purpose of applying for that is we were not getting the kind of help from the Illinois EPA that we thought we needed to be cleaning things up. So when we got this national status, the US EPA asked the Illinois EPA, like, what's going on? You only have three little places in the watershed that are listed as impaired waters. And in a very short amount of time, the entire river was categorized as an impaired river. So when that takes place, there has to be some action. So with the Clean Water Act, the first thing that it worked on were permits on point and areas referred to as point sources. And a point source is somewhere you can point to like a pipe coming out. So in that case, they developed regulations and there was enforcement, but there was funding. And that's not so common anymore. So municipalities and even private industries got money to retrofit their operations to be able to meet the regulations. So we've dealt with the point sources pretty successfully, but now the problem are non-point sources. They were there before, but the point sources were easy to identify. And so non-point means it's coming from various places, like running off a parking lot or running off an ag field. And it's very hard to make the particular connections. So the deal with an impaired water is it's impairing the water body's ability to support biologically. So how this works is if you have an excess of nutrients like phosphorus or nitrogen, those promote plant growth and algae growth. And one of the impairments is nuisance algae. As that algae grows, it doesn't live very long. And when it dies, it's decomposed by bacteria. And the bacteria are aerobic in many cases, and they are consuming dissolved oxygen out of the water. So you can end up with a fish kill that started as excess phosphorus, but ended up a fish kill because of low dissolved oxygen. So the impairments on the Fox River are elevated phosphorus, nuisance algae, low dissolved oxygen, habitat non-connectivity, and so the modification are the buildings of dams, so the fish cannot get above the dams and other organisms like mussels, and excess sediment. So, and then we have some new threats like PFAS. So, one celebration we can have this year is that Wisconsin came up with their total maximum daily load. So, normally when you're in impaired water, this is what the EPA wants you to do is make a regulation, a limit, and then figure out how you're going to address that. So, they looked at phosphorus and they made goals for reducing the amount of phosphorus. And so their goals are listed there. And I found this pretty interesting. It's not just a standard goal. So rivers are zero point 0.1 milligrams of phosphorus, and streams are smaller. And the reason streams are smaller is they don't have the dilution ability that rivers do. And lakes have a different standard because they're pretty much standing water. So one thing that was particularly interesting is that Wisconsin recognized they called our Fox River the Illinois Fox River because they have the Wolf River Fox River that goes into Green Bay. And so they decided they wanted very strict regulations because when it leaves Wisconsin, it goes into Grassy Lake. And so they accepted the loads in Grassy Lake as their responsibility. So Grassy Lake's the top of the chain of lakes, and so this was a glacial formation, 15 different lakes. They're all listed as impaired, and this is the busiest waterway in America. It can have 30,000 people on a weekend, and on some holidays like Memorial Day, it's more like 100,000. So it's a heavily used recreation area. It does have a dam and a lock that controls the level, and they basically monitor it off of Fox Lake, and they try to keep Fox Lake at a regular level. So if it's going up, they open up the dam, and if it's going down, they close the dam and hold water back. Algonquin Dam also has a floodgate, but all the other dams provide no control over flooding. So Wisconsin adopted their TMDL for phosphorus, but down going from Algonquin all the way down to where it empties into the Illinois, we petitioned the EPA not to have to do a TMDL, but to study it. So the Fox River Study Group was created in 2001, and its job was to figure out what is going to be the best way to address the impairments. So after many different research endeavors, they decided that in 2015 we're going to work on phosphorus. That's the limit, and we're going to work on that at wastewater treatment plants. $150 million was invested, and we're easily going to meet that goal by the 2030 deadline for that. In 2022, the recommendation was to deal with the other impairments, and it was found that really the only way to deal with those is by dam removal. And so one of the worries is if we're not able to accomplish dam removal, then we're just going to have to go back and work on lower limits of phosphorus, which will help a little bit, but it's not going to help with the habitat connectivity that's there. The Army Corps of Engineers are interested in dam removal, and they did a long study and partially funded by the study group, and they have recommended the removal of 9 dams. And the Illinois Department of Natural Resources owns most of the dams. They do care about connectivity, but their main concern is safety because they're responsible for the liability. Just recently, a mapping program has been approved to map the bottom of the river, and this should give us a good look at when dams are removed, what things are going to look like, because there's a lot of fear involved with what's going to happen. But in October of 24, we got a really good example. So the Carpenter Dam began removal in October, and it was finished in the very beginning of November. So this is quite a collage I have for you. So that's me in the kayak. Like this was one of the biggest thrills of my professional career. We've been working on dam removal for 30 years, and the Carpenter Dam was 6 years of paperwork to get it going. So that's day one in the top middle. On the top right there, that's my dog and I, and we went out daily to check the progress. And underneath that is my colleague Caitlin holding up a couple live freshwater mussels. And it was quite a surprise. We didn't think the impoundment could support many mussels, but there were some highly tolerant species that were surviving there. And so we collected well over 1,000 mussels and relocated them. Below that just shows a cleanup crew. So while the dam removal was taking place, we did 4 different cleanups because it exposed 100 years of debris that was under there. A stellar moment is in the bottom right, and normally you have a ribbon cutting ceremony, but in this case we had a ribbon tying ceremony because we tied the downstream and the upstream stretches of the river together by removing the dam. The Illinois Natural History Survey came out. That's the middle picture on the bottom, and surveyed mussels just below the dam. And there is an abundant population there, but it's not very diverse. But where we're kneeling in the stream there is less than a mile downstream, and it had incredible diversity. I think we found 15 species that day and a new species. The bottom left are the fisheries biologists from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. They censused before and after the dam removal, but they just did it pretty much below the dam. So they still have to go back and take a census upstream. All right. So how we're looking at this is like how you read a clock. So it's clockwise. So the top left is the historic impoundment. above the Carpentersville Dam. And a good focal point is that island in the middle upstream. So on the top right is the very beginning of notching, and I was incorrect. It started on, I think, September 24th, but it was all through October, removing the dam. So that was the first day of notching the dam. And I'll just go back to this picture. On the top right, you can see that they notched the dam, but left most of the dam for it to dewater. And so that's what happened in October. So right where my cursor is where the dam was. They opened it up, and where you see bare soil, that was all underwater. So you can reference that island again. And then when it was finished, is the dewatering um, that resulted. That was there. A lot of there was flowing water coming that were little bitty streams that have been submerged for over 100 years. So the river was finding its channel. So where we left off in the last slide, we're picking it up here in November. So this is right after construction was done. Then this is the middle of the summer, and the water actually was higher in this picture on the right. On the picture on the left was 375 cubic, or maybe I'm getting that mixed up, but it was less than the 550. So it looks like less water in July, but it's not. It's actually deeper in the channel. So the flow is greater. So it was carving down into the sediment that was there. And then in August, I'm sorry, there was a lot of fear that all this exposed area was going to be muck, and it was muck in the beginning, but it turned out that muck dried up and blew away and washed in between cracks of sand grains because the fine sediment that makes muck are tinier particles than sand, and all this that you're seeing in July is sand beach. And in August, it happened in a week. Like it just flushed out. And so here you can see a year later what it looks like. And this is also in August. We did a little botanizing and we had a dam night out and invited people for an open house looking at plants and insects and birds. And the botanizing that has taken place currently, we have 62 species that came in with no human intervention, and 10 of those are undesirable. And a lot of us thought most of it would be undesirable. So this was a huge surprise. So our management challenge now is to maintain that diversity. This is not such a great picture on the left, but what I'm showing there is a sand beach in front of a building that hosts a lot of wedding parties. And it's a matter of perspective. The owner of the business there was furious because there was this new mud flat that he called it. And what I'm showing you on the right side is dried up muck, and that breaks down and exposes the sand. And there's a handful of sand that came from the sandbar right there. There were mussels populating it, birds feeding, but because it was new, it was something scary. But scouring out and depositing is a natural cycle. So when high water flows, the bottom gets pushed and suspended. And when the flow of the river is greater than the force of gravity, a lot of material is suspended. When the flow of the river is less than the force of gravity, it gets deposited. And so these sandbars move all around. So getting back to where we are with the state of the fox. So we know that we're in climate chaos. We know we have political chaos. So what are the people to do? And we know that most of us are not comfortable with chaos. We have to plan our business. If you're a farmer, you need to know if somebody's going to be buying your crop. So these are very uncertain times. So going back to the bishop, talking about the important thing is how do we respond? And that's by thinking like a watershed and addressing the impairments we have and using the basic tools to make good decisions. And I was asked to make it 40 minutes. I do have a bunch of other stuff, but I can cut it off here because that's basically the state of the Fox, and I want to be respectful of your time. I just have some more success stories on there and Friends of the Fox River commercial.
Please go with the Friends of the Fox River commercial and
Okay,
also tell
I'll
us
be
the problems you are meeting with our situation in Washington. Please, thank you. I'm sorry.
all right. Well, I just buzzed through these. So these were watershed-wide things that were taking place, and I mentioned this money available for land purchase and new mapping tools and watershed plans. So for Friends of the Fox River, we have a lot of sister organizations that help us. And but what is different about our niche is our boundary is the entire watershed. The other organizations have separate boundaries. Could be the state line, could be a region, could be a municipal boundary, county boundary. And so the graphic on the right is just showing our reach and to work on being watershed wide. It's a big challenge for a small organization, but we do a lot of different things and we spread it out. So um, we see ourselves as a leader in providing experiences, and the middle of our mission is connecting people to nature. So, our main thing you can see on the left is getting people in the stream, censusing it biologically, chemically, and physically, and kids learn how alive it is. And so, there's kids on the right getting ready to go out in canoes, and in the top right is a corporate cleanup. So education's our main thing. These are a lot of numbers on there. Um, so this is just a standard poster, but we do a lot of different programming, but our favorite is getting kids in the stream. We've advocated for dam removal from the beginning, but protecting the watershed uh, deals with all types of development. In the bottom left, has been for the last couple years trying to deal with big box warehouses and logistical centers for trucks. A lot of people want stuff delivered tomorrow, and there's a price to pay for that. In the middle bottom is the hot topic right now, data centers. But we're making progress with dam removal. Research, we used to be the house for research, but we have a lot of other organizations helping us. In the bottom right is a new piece of research we're working on, and that's eDNA. So with a water sample, if you know the DNA of a smallmouth bass or a slipper shell, you can tell by filtering the water whether it's been present there or not. This is just my alphabet soup of all different organizations that are involved in river protection. So you can see there's a lot of us, but it takes a lot of work. And that's my commercial.
Oh my gosh, that was awesome. Um, I think we're going to toss this over to Steve, who's going to sort through the questions. Um, Gary, who processes your DNA sampling? Where do
Um,
you get that done?
it's out of Loyola University, so it's a brand new project. He got a grant, and so Friends of the Fox is the educational component for that. So he right now is developing the database for that, but he has been out in the watershed with his students doing collections, and so we're hoping next year we're going to get our students doing some collection.
That is awesome. Awesome. I'm very jealous. Um, Steve, are you ready to
I'm
go?
here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
Okay.
hear.
The first question is, where were the mussels relocated to?
Well, in some cases, like we just put them in the deepest part of the river. So we took them off from where they were stranded and placed them in the river. And we were pretty surprised. We would cover an area and come back 3 days later, and there were more mussels there. Like, how is that possible? And what I learned out of it is mussels are filter feeders, and that's also how they respirate. And so they, if it's dry, will burrow down in the sediment and get water so that they can respirate. And so we'd clean it up, and mussels were down in the sediment, which would later emerge. And in some cases, they were transported downstream. But it was pretty much like a EMT kind of operation. We went out 5 days.
Okay. The next question is from Linda. How did the Army Corps remove the dam? Did they
The
explode
Army
it or
Corps,
did they dig it up?
the Army Corps only are the permittees.
Okay.
And then it relies on the owner. And the Carpenter Dam was owned by the Kane County Forest Preserve District, but they also have to get permits from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources. And it was an engineering group. And no, it's not like a Roadrunner cartoon. They don't blow it up. They go out there with the excavator with like a jackhammer on it and just bust through the concrete.
Oh, okay.
And in the case of the Carpenter Dam, it just had an apron of concrete, like 8 inches thick, over logs and boulders. And so what they thought was going to take a week, they did in about 2 hours.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yep.
All right. The next question is: are there any more dams scheduled to be
Yeah,
removed?
I had a slide on that I blew through. So the Montgomery Dam and the North Aurora Dam, they were ready to go 3 years ago, and then we didn't have a state budget, so everybody had to get back in line. And they're completing some sediment studies there, but I imagine within 2 years those two will be gone. And I'm pretty confident the two in Aurora will leave. They're on both sides of the casino that is closing. And then we'll see what other hopefully all 9 dams in Kane County will come out.
Okay. Doug had a question about the salt. He said Lake County has a workshop for best practices to reduce salt. Do other counties along the Fox River have these similar programs?
Yes, they do. McHenry has been really aggressive with that. And Kane is also working on it. It's a program called Salt Smart. And so they work with municipalities, but also big vendors that do big lots, like a school district. We'd love to see a situation where you can earn a certification, and so the public could hire people that are certified to be using best practices, and then that could go for lawn care applications as well, because it just lacks training. It's not no nobody's dumping a bunch of salt because they're trying to waste money. Um,
Okay.
so kudos to the counties for
Yeah,
running those workshops.
sure. Michelle asks, does the dam removal mean the river runs faster? And is it then more complex? And then the word kayaks, I don't know if it has to do with kayaking or boating or
All
canoeing.
right. So what happens when you build the dam, you slow water down in the impoundment that it creates in the lake, but you slow it down, but that creates more of a water buildup. So it still is pretty much the same flow going down the river. So when you remove that dam, as it's drawn down, the flow gets consistent instead of kind of fast and then slow. But it's a little bit of an illusion because it's more water, so it looks like it's not moving, but I'm not explaining this well. Because it's a greater volume, it looks like it has less velocity. And so what happens is it's not as spread out and it gets in a more narrow channel, about a third of the size that it was.
Okay.
So in that particular area, it does now have flow when you put your kayak in it. And so part of the benefit of this is for paddling. Now, one of our watershed wide celebrations is we have 150 miles of the Fox as a national water trail. And one of the purposes of that is to make it more accessible for paddling. And those people that have to paddle around dams know it's kind of hard to carry your canoe across Route 64 in St. Charles, um, or other places. So we think this is going to be an economic boom. Kane County has invested $1 million just in promoting that water trail because of what they think it will bring to the county.
Oh, good. Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Okay, I have one before I move on. What have you noticed? Has this changed your fish population? Have you noticed the quality of not only fish, but obviously all the invertebrates too?
Yep, yep. So there was a study done way back in 2002, and they looked at 15 dams on the Fox River and five parameters, and one of them was diversity of fish and another diversity of macroinvertebrates. And consistently above the dam got rated a D habitat for lack of diversity, and below the dam a B. And so the theory is when you take the dam out, you're going to be restoring the quality upstream. And so that D will become a B, but actually might become an A because of the greater spread of diversity. There's no shortage of data. 30 dams have come out in northeastern Illinois, and pretty consistently with the IDNR data, when a dam comes out in the first year, the abundance of fish increases 6 times and the diversity 3 times in the first year. So it's just like opening the door and they've been waiting, waiting. So if we use an example like in Yorkville, they didn't take the dam out years ago. They modified it and they made a fish passage, which is a whitewater play park. And it's very easy for the fish to get upstream through that channel. And they have radio transmitters on them, and they found the fish want to go upstream, but they come right back down because the dissolved oxygen level is so low above the dam. And we're seeing it all across the country. There were 200 dams removed last year across the country, and so it's a trend.
Well, thank you.
So I have a question on that then. Does removing the dam increase the oxygen levels?
It
Dissolved
allows it,
oxygen?
yes. Well, so the flowing water, the more agitation there is, the more oxygen is produced. And some people say you have to keep the dam because all this water is flowing and mixing, but it's a net loss because you have a mile upstream that's calmer water. And because it's slower moving water on the surface, it's absorbing more heat, and there is a relationship between temperature and dissolved oxygen. It goes up and down during the day, but the net dissolved oxygen, the warmer that water is, the lower it is. And so that should be recovering. Um,
This is the same process that they used in the Grand Canyon, isn't it? They opened up the river and it
yeah, on
flushed.
the Columbia and the Snake, yes.
But they haven't
Flushed
opened up the
out.
Grand Canyon.
They haven't opened up where the Grand Canyon is. Some of those big power producers that, we're not, those are
Yeah,
300-foot tall dams. But some of like the on the Klamath, those are
yes,
the biggest dam removals that have happened yet.
yeah. Well, Gary, we're going to have you back again because we think you have a lot more to tell us.
I
And
have a lot of stories. Yep.
we want to make sure that people know to check your website because you're probably looking for volunteers, and our Lake County people would be more than welcome, I'm sure.
That's awesome. Well, our big event of the year is September 19th. It's our Fox River Day. And so it's a 200-mile celebration of the river. We're hoping for 100 different events this year. And so it requires partners. So right now we're recruiting people to host an event. The majority of them are cleanups, but there's all kinds of things. There's kids writing in chalk on the sidewalk next to the river. There's people teaching others to do water quality. I mean, watercolor there. People taking bike trips. We're going to have our first dog event this year. So
Oh,
if you go to the
great.
website and you look for the tab, it's just the initials.
How
I
far north? How far north will
all the
those?
way to Waukesha.
Oh, okay. So the
Yep.
chain of lakes would be in there.
Yep, yep. So, whatever you want to do, we want everybody to just, your faith group, your boating buddies, your fishing buddies, your bird watching buddies, like gather some other people and turn them on to our river. And it doesn't have to be the main stem. It could be a lake, it could be a tributary, it could be a forest preserve. Um, so the more people that are connected, we know the more they value it. And we're always looking for friends. We dropped membership and we're just welcoming friends in.
Well, we thank you for that and for all the good work you're doing. Um, and also, I want to remind people there is a video, a wonderful video that is, we'll put it on the reminder that I send out. But if you can't wait, if you just Google Friends of the Fox River, you'll find it right there. It's a wonderful video highlighting Gary's work in the classroom slash laboratory, outdoor
Yeah,
laboratory. Um, so we want to thank you so much for this
you're my pleasure.
and
Appreciate the opportunity.
encourage people to take a ride, get out there.
Yeah,
Um, on so looking forward on Sunday, April 19th, our Sunday speaker series will present an important program focusing on the issues of data centers. Um, we will welcome a Sierra Club advocate, Sally Burgess, who will share a program, Data Centers in Our Communities, What We Know, What's at Stake, and What We Can Do. This will be a presentation you won't want to miss. You can register on our website or through the Woods and Wetlands newsletter. Thank you all for joining us tonight. And again, thanks to Gary Swick for sharing. You will be receiving an email from me later this week, and the Doug's gonna load all this talk onto our YouTube channel, and you'll be able to. That's my dog. He's bad. You'll be able to download it, the program, and I'll also put information for the Friends of the Fox Rivers
thank
activities
you.
September 19th, and also an address for the video. It's really a good one.
It's only 12
Well,
minutes. It's inspirational.
yeah, it actually got to my heart. So it's wonderful to see kids out there. If we don't teach kids to value our land, we're sunk.
Yeah.
So, anyways, happy Sunday, Palm Sunday, and good night to all. And thanks for coming.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I'll be sending